Humanity has been on an epic journey of discovery, learning the truth about the world we live in. New discoveries about the true...
And good evening, welcome to tonight's episode of Reclaiming Perception. Delighted to have as my guest tonight, Marie Carey. I've been following Anne for quite a while now, a good few years, because she's been a wonderful activist, very tenacious, very investigative, looking at some of the things that other people will label as conspiracy theories, from things like false flag attacks to chemtrails, geoengineering, and more recently, since October last year, the rollout or the proposed rollout of 5G. Now, thank you for coming on the show, Anne.
Thank you for having me. Most people call me Annie.
Annie, sorry Annie, okay. And one of the things that was really important for me is to get you on with all the knowledge and research, because you are so thorough, so tenacious, and you have a passion to get your information out there to the public. So I think it'd be really great if I can leave you to do most of the talking tonight, and I'll ask questions as we go along. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine, but might be a bit of a information overload, but never mind.
I think the info needs to get out there, so I'm just going to give a couple of pointers. Last week you was on the Richie Allen show talking about your information, but you gave about a 40-minute talk, wasn't it, on that show?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so tonight there is going to be a lot more detail, a lot more of your investigations and more facts and figures behind it. We're also going to play a video at some point throughout the interview. And just before we start with that, I always like people to know who people are. So do you want to give us a little bit of background of who you are? What's led you to become such a wonderful, tenacious activist that you are today?
Well, thank you very much for the compliment. I think I started getting involved in doing deep research after 9/11, because that to me, like a lot of people, was just an eye-opener, because I thought, hang on a minute, that doesn't look right at all. Mm-hmm. So I started doing a lot of research on that. I wasn't actually making videos or anything like that. I just basically kept done a lot of writing, so I had a lot of details about what had occurred and kept them for myself. But after that, I got involved in a lot of charity events. So I basically used to just spend 6 months organising, like, for water wells in Bangladesh, and so I went on the charity thing for quite a while. And then I think it must have been about 6 or 7 years ago when I started to really get into research and started creating YouTube videos and stuff, because when events happened that I just immediately saw something wrong in it, I would go and do the research and check it all out, maybe down avenues that other people hadn't actually looked at. So so I'd share them videos on YouTube, and quite a lot of activism I've done over the years as well. I got involved in Hastings against chemtrails. Hastings, obviously, where I live, and we organised the chemtrail commercial on Sky Telly for chemtrails. I got involved in vaccines, and I went into the local town centre. I made sure that people were aware of what was in the swine flu vaccine, the squalene, that was actually dangerous to health. When I got involved in the welfare rights, I just used to go to the town and sit outside the town centre, talk to people about what the welfare rights meant to other people, and what it actually entailed and what the changes were. And then I just sort of got into research, and I've actually, spent time researching different things depending on what's happening in the world. So, and I find myself, basically about a week ago, I decided that it was time to have this mass action campaign for the rollout, this 5G technology. So the reason why it happened last week is because just about in October, I'm doing a lot of research on the false flags and stuff, and I realised that this 5G technology was something serious that I'd actually missed. While I'm concentrating on the false flags and all this other stuff, this is something deadly serious, and I'd completely missed it altogether, as many other people have, and still now don't even know what's going on. So I decided to I decided to look into it, and I knew that the time was coming where a lot of people on YouTube were going to be getting struck off, because I did get a strike at that point. Now, one of my subscribers named Steve kindly said to me, I don't want your research to get lost in the ethos, so can I create a website for you, which I thought was fantastic. I said that would be absolutely amazing, because it gives me a chance to save all my research on the 5G technology. Although my website is called Analogical Uncensored, and you can find her at www.vigile.org, which is VIGILIAE.org. There's other stuff on there besides the 5G technology. Obviously, I've tried to cover other topics like the vaccines and other things like that. I've also got a forum on there that anybody can join and utilise and use it for whatever reason. I was hoping that the 5G mass action campaign would take off, and that people in other areas would utilise the forum on my website just to say, you know, we're doing this is the actions that we're taking, blah, blah, blah. So last week I started this 5G mass action campaign on Facebook. Now, this is in conjunction with a group called Real Change that I'm involved with. They're community-based groups that are spread all around the UK, and they're all involved on different levels doing different things. It's a fantastic group. It was started by a guy called Jason Nota, and they do things like outreach in the community, or they do street kitchens, or they just hold meetings where they make people aware of things that are going on. So this 5G mass action campaign is actually Real Change, something that Real Change is heavily involved with. So obviously the idea was to get people on Facebook to take notice. I know there's a lot of groups on Facebook with 5G saying no, say no to 5G, or, you know, 5G UK, all sorts of different groups on Facebook. And the idea was, because what I found is, and I don't mean to be respectful at all, but a lot of the times when people find out about dangerous technologies or anything that, you know, they have a problem with, they don't actually do much about it. They spend a lot of time on groups on Facebook and social media and passing lots of information about, but they don't actually do anything positive or constructive or active to do anything about it. And it's quite frustrating for someone like me, who likes to make sure that, you know, I am active in the community. I'm not just someone who I'd class as a keyboard warrior, if you like. So the idea was to collect, you know, get as many people as possible involved in the campaign. We said the first thing, well, obviously I've started an event page on Facebook, and get everybody to change their picture. You know, we give some ideas for pictures that you could use, like say no to 5G, or, you know, shine a light on the dangers of 5G, this sort of thing. And we also said to people, you know, we'll do a mass leaflet campaign. So I've created the leaflet, and Real Change members have, you know, made the icon on there to make it look a lot better, and that's all available as well. Anyone can download the leaflet either from my website in a PDF file form, or on the events page on Facebook. So we were actually giving people ideas and asking people as well, you know, what can you suggest that we can do that can make a difference in your area? So some of the suggestions are to be writing a letter campaign, writing to newspapers, local councils under the Freedom of Information Act, asking them questions about the lampposts, about the technology, what their plans are. Also to write into, well, anybody basically who is involved in pushing the 5G technology within your area. Like I say, it might be possible to, you know, get donations so that we can do other things like put adverts in papers or make the issues known. And the reason why is because I personally feel of all the topics and issues that I've actually got involved with over the years, I personally think that this is one of the most dangerous and the most serious of all of them. And it incorporates everything from the vaccines to the chemtrails and everything in between. So it's something that I'm highly serious about. I think we need to start educating people about what this technology is all about, or at least just giving them the push to push them in the right direction. You go and have a look at that. The whole reason why I put all the information on my website was that when people ask me questions, or where's the study links and all that, I can point them in that direction.
Yeah, and I think the way it's been rolled out, the next generation of technology, because the G stands for next generation, doesn't it? First generation, second generation, etc. So we've been getting these, what appears to be an upgrade of technology that seems less, almost as harmless as the one before. And so we've all just become accustomed to expecting the next generation to come out. So it means faster technology or easier access to our addictive mobile phones or laptops or streaming. And it's just so far from that, isn't it?
Well, I'd have to say, where you said it's just, it's just as harmless as the one before, that is the whole problem, is that what we've actually been used to with the third and fourth generation technology, that in itself is not a healthy, this has got its own health consequences and problems attached to it.
Yep.
Now, the dangers from the technology that we've been used to up to now, well, there's from the EMF radiation. It's been well documented with thousands and thousands of peer-reviewed studies for decades, and the studies they've been ignored by the governments and the telecommunication industries, dating right back to the 80s when they first set the standards. And the standards were first set by the ICNIRP, and they claimed at the time that only ionizing radiation was a danger. Now, ionizing or thermal radiation, they were claiming that non-ionizing radiation wasn't a danger at all. And they did this under the watch of a guy called Dr. Rapaccioli. He was an industry insider, and he's evidently ignored any studies that indicated the dangers in favor of the industry-led studies. And the same holds true today, some 40 years later. So we can see that even though we have all these studies exposing the dangers of this technology, and there are no safe levels of this exposure, that we can see we get this from the cordless phones, of the Wi-Fi, and smart meters. They all operate in the 2.4 gigahertz frequency, which was the frequency that affects our water molecules. And I think you'll show the video of that later on. So right from the very beginning, they were aware right from the start of the damage to living tissues. They knew that it would occur within that 2.4 gigahertz frequency. So, when we think about the damage already being done to our health with this EMF, we can't imagine the health consequences of having the 5G technology. Now, like you said, they're claiming it's just people actually think it's just the next technology up. We must have had 4G. It must just be 5G. It's just, it's nothing. It's just a simple upgrade. And it's not just a simple upgrade to enable faster speeds or to cope with better connectivity. What we've got in place is already sufficient and highly dangerous. But obviously, they're going to introduce this 5G technology. So where we've been used to using 1 to 4 or 5 gigahertz in the past, we are now going to be using between 5 to 6 and hundreds of gigahertz. So whereas we've been suffering from the ill health effects from 4 gigahertz, and 4 gigahertz is the equivalent of 4 billion electromagnetic waves hitting the body per second. Okay? Now,
Wow.
We are now going to be facing anywhere, well, the banding about the idea that it will be between 24 and 90 gigahertz, which is what they said, the spectrum that they're talking about. So we will have gone from 4 billion per second to up to 90 billion per second. Okay?
It just doesn't bear thinking about. It's shocking.
It's catastrophic.
Yeah.
Now, any mention of any of this technology that claims to be smart is actually the dumbest technology in terms of impact of the human health and the environment that we will ever be faced with. So they've deliberately created nations of people who are addicted to Wi-Fi and cell phones. And now they're planning to see this long-held plan that they've had come to fruition by introducing these death towers everywhere. Now, there's already 3% of the population that are severely sensitive to EMF radiation. There's 35% are moderately sensitive, and there's 80% of people who are suffering with health problems, which has been magnified greatly with the introduction of smart meters. And the health risks are especially for young children, because obviously they soak up radiation twice as much as adults do. And the smart meters produce between 500 to 8,000 times more microwave radiation than a mobile phone. 500 to 800,000 times. And obviously you can't switch them off. You can't just switch them off. So
Yeah.
the bandwidth that's being used for 5G, they've notably said that it will be about 60 gigahertz, which is known to affect our oxygen. So that in turn is going to create more health problems, have to do with less oxygen in the blood. That will affect us in many ways, including neurological, skin diseases, eyes, heart problems, which also they will have the ability to create gene toxicity, which they will then claim that it's a new virus. Oh, there's a new virus on the block. So we need to use this new vaccine that we've got at the ready all of a sudden, you know? So this is something that's highly dangerous, and people need to realize, first of all, the dangers from the gigahertz that we've already been using. And we also need people to realize the difference between what we're using now, which is dangerous enough, and what they're planning for us to use in the future.
Yeah, I mean, just those figures alone. I mean, I don't even use a microwave. I haven't for years, because I understand the damage it does to human cells, and the output from that is just nothing in comparison, is it?
No, absolutely. And the problem is, you see, because of the way these millimeter waves are used, they have to use them in a pulsed frequency. Now, whereas now the body copes, but not well, with this constant frequency. When the studies have shown that when a pulsed frequency is used, it's even worse, because that the body cannot cope with pulsed waves. So the fact that they're going to have pulse waves, and also they're talking about they're going to have to use small cell towers. Now, because they don't travel far, they're going to have small cell towers that actually have to be between 100 meters and 300 meters apart. And I've read a report by the National Infrastructure Commission that they claim that whereas now there's like 4,000 of these cell towers nationwide, they're going to need that many alone just in London. So these cell towers are going to be placed between 100 and 300 meters apart, which means they're going to be saturated everywhere. There will be no escape from them. Okay,
It will be crazy.
It is. And they're also planning on using the infrastructure that is already out there, like the lampposts. Recently, they've conned they're probably well involved in it. The Church of England have agreed to allow their church structures and their farm buildings and any other structures that they've got to be utilised for this infrastructure, for them to use this infrastructure. Now, that's one of the things that I think that we talked about as far as Mass Action Campaign went, was to contact these churches and say, How dare you just think you can use technology and just put it up in your churches without any safety studies? What right have you got to do that? You know, when we've got a system whereby there's 220 there's 220 doctors and scientists from I think it's 38 different countries, and they've contacted the United Nations Commission and asked them for a moratorium on it, because they've said we've got the evidence that shows that this 5G technology is not safe, and you should listen to studies that don't. You see, the problem is all the studies, the only studies that they're interested in is the studies that they're getting from research, like universities who are industry funded anyway, or for any studies that are industry funded, or people who claim that non-ionizing radiation is safe anyway. Now, how they can even suggest that it's safe when the World Health Organization has already stated that it's a class 2 possible carcinogenic, okay? They've already come out and stated that. So, you know, we already know the problems that people have faced with cancer cells around the cell, cancer clusters around the cell towers, the higher incidence of cancers between your mouth and your head. You know, you've had people who've kept their phones down their bras or in their trousers or wherever close to the body. This is causing all sorts of skin cancers and everything. So there is no doubt whatsoever that they are actually ignoring all this on purpose, because they obviously don't want the people to realize what is actually going on. And the 5G technology comes with it. I mean, apart from the fact that it can cause so many problems, it can cause DNA strand breaks. It can interfere. They've got the technology has also got it can be used as a weapon system as well. So I'll go into that as well. But you know, on a health level, even what we've got now is a danger, and to think that we're going to be faced with something that's thousands of times more dangerous, it doesn't bear thinking about. So because they're bringing it in so quickly without much ado, you know, what they're basically doing is they're saying to people, they're conning people, they're saying, oh, this is great, it's all about the next stage of, you know, connectivity, better connectivity. You want faster broadbands, don't you? You want to be able to download stuff quicker and all that. Now, even that in itself is a load of bull, because it's already been proven. Now, let me just get this bit of paper. There's a guy who's a mobile data consultant and wireless expert. His name's Nick Hunn. And he says that the 5G lacks a single clear or decisive reason for being, and that more money could have been spent on proving what we've already got, which is sufficient for thousands of other devices, and that a much better network idea will be to pour that money with more stringent coverage requirements of LTE for over 5 years. He says the large investments will not muster the significant new services that justify the expenditure, and that broadband speeds of 100 Mbps to the home haven't generated any new applications. They just increase the content that people stream. So mobile connectivity, we could do better with Wi-Fi integration, which is a lot cheaper than 5G. Now, another person who's a professor, Professor William Webb, and he has come out and stated that he was also the the ex-commissioner of Ofcom or something, he was ex-director, that was it, sorry. He's the ex-director of Ofcom, and he has stated, this is a professor, that 5G is no panacea for connectivity issues, that 4G would have covered us for the next decade. So basically, these are experts in the field who are claiming that it doesn't actually mean that we will get better connectivity, because the short lengths of the frequency. It could be, you know, you could turn a corner and you lose your connection. So the whole premise that what they're trying to flogged this new technology off doesn't even wash. So we need to be making sure that people are aware that the costs of this are going to be astronomical. You know, I mean, all the costs always get passed down to the consumer. So
Yeah.
who's going to pay for all this new small cell towers that we're going to be covered the UK with? And who on earth wants to see cell towers placed to 100 to 300 meters apart all over the place, everywhere? Who wants to see that? It's
I've got
absolutely...
a couple of points just to come in there. One is Richie Allen. I know he interviewed you, but a few days ago he interviewed a guy called Mark Steele, who was from Gateshead, and he's a technical officer with, you know, a background in science and understanding and engineering, and he fully understands, and he gives a really great description of the potential risks. So I would recommend anyone wanting to add to what Annie's going to share with you today, have a listen to that Mark Steele interview with Richie Allen. And another thing I wanted to ask you, Annie, before we just go a little bit further into your information, is what was going through my mind as you were talking, you know, about writing to churches and this mass action. For me, if we can get enough evidence and maybe threaten legally the people who are the decision makers and hold them accountable for the potential risk and damage to the cells of the children, of the humans, of the animals, and you know, we can find some way of making them accountable for what decisions they're making right now. What do you think?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because there is a group called the Empower movement. Now, they have been, for the past, as far as I know, year and a half, they've been passing on what's called a notice of liability order. Okay, so they created a notice of liability order, which they claim that they have taken to officials in places in North America and Canada. Now, what happened was, it's an actual process. It's not just one form. It's a process that you have to go through.
Yeah, it sits out the current legal system and using actual universal law, doesn't it, rather than common law it uses.
Yeah, well, these are going through. They're sort of saying they're saying in their notice of liability, right, this is just the people who are pushing this technology. It could be someone in the council, or, you know, it's just people who are dog's bodies who are doing the dirty work. That they're basically saying, you take this notice of liability to them and you say, okay, if you want me to have this technology, right, you need to sign this to say that you're going to be liable for any of the health risks that come because of it. So if that's the case, sign here, and if anyone gets sick or ill because of it, we'll be fining you X amount of millions of pounds. Now, the Empower movement have claimed that certain officials have actually resigned since they gave them this notice of liability. Now, I don't know. I haven't looked fully into the ones who've resigned, but I'll take their word for it. Now, it's funny you should say that, because they contacted me about 2 weeks ago. They must have seen my they've seen my website, because they sent me an email saying, you know, well done on the website. And they contacted me and said, would you be prepared to take charge of the UK Empower movement? Well, of course I said, well, of course I will. That's fantastic. You know, we can work with this. But then when I started to look at what they were doing in their website, it turns out that the UK, the notice of liability does not have jurisdiction in the UK. So what would be needed would be someone who's got a law background, who knows what they're talking about, because I wouldn't attempt it. This is, you know, it's not my forte. I don't know about that sort of thing. So, you know, I said to them, the thing is, I said, I can't be part of the UK Empower movement, which is basically all about the notice of liability, if we don't have the notice of liability to use in the first place. So I said, if anyone out there could help with that, I'd be quite happy to get involved in any way that I can. But in the meantime, it's going to have to take someone with that sort of knowledge and background to look at the notice of liability orders that and the process that's being used in North America and Canada, and utilize that for the UK. So if there's anybody out there who could help with that, then obviously get in touch and we can talk, you know.
Yeah, and what I'm going to ask is people share this interview far and wide. I don't care about viewing numbers for any kind of ego perspective, but this information is so important that we need it sharing and sharing and sharing. And I know somebody who's got a legal background who looks at a lot of the satanic ritual abuse stuff, and he might be quite busy with that, but he's somebody I trust, so I'll have a word with him to see if he can signpost us to anybody to maybe help us out, because I think if we make people think they're going to be liable, yeah, and they're accountable, it's more likely to have weight. Unfortunately, you'd like to think that the potential risk to human health would put them off, but it doesn't seem to work in this corrupt world the way the political system works across this planet right now. So let's scare them. Let's stand in our power and use the system they've used against us against them.
Yeah, that's the idea. That's it exactly. Another thing I was going to mention is there's a study also on my website that states that there's no evidence. Obviously, that's a bit noisy out there, right? There's no evidence of long-term studies of what this pulsating frequency will do on so many different levels, whether it's pregnant women or children who are, or even cancer victims or people who's got immune compromised problems and such like that. There's also the fact that all it takes is two or three combinations of different toxins in the atmosphere to interact with the non-ionizing EMF, and it would be an absolute disaster. Now, an estimate of the amount of toxins that we are daily coming into contact when we talk about pesticides and, fluoride and drugs and all sorts of things, the estimate is 800. And that means that for the combinations of any amount of these with the non-ionizing EMF, we'd have to have at least 80 million experiments before we found out the dangers. It's absolutely mind-blowing. It shows that, in conjunction with other co-promoters, it can have terrible adverse effects that can cause diseases. It acts as an electroporation. It makes the cell more permeable to allow drugs to enter. And people have stated that, this technology is used for good in health. That's because that's what it does. It's used in that way that it pulses the cell, it makes the cell open up, and then other, like if they're using it for cancer treatments and stuff like that, that's what they do. They open the cell up and then they pump it whatever else they're going to be using. But obviously, that's another matter, because I don't believe that any of that helps anyone with cancer at all.
Fully agree. Watch The Truth About Cancer, the documentary series, it proves it doesn't.
Exactly, and I mean, we're being lied to on so many levels. It's utterly ridiculous, So, yeah, makes the cells more permeable, allows drugs to enter. So, which means that, for people who are on any sorts of tablets or anything like that, this is going to all cause adverse effects on all these people. And I mean, the other thing is as well that individuals might react differently to these millimeter waves, or even in opposite ways, Some people have got increased sensitivity. Some have got hypersensitivity. Adverse effects range from cancers to autism, heart, eye problems, reproductive problems. It's been stated that it can boil sperm. Heart, eye problems, it can open the cells to unwanted toxic materials in the blood-brain barrier. So it's just, it's a nightmare.
There isn't anything good about it, is there? There just isn't anything worth considering it.
There's nothing at all. And this is the scary part about it for me, because, what's behind all this, the technology and the people who are behind it. This is what I want people to realise, and this is where my the research that I've been doing about these people comes into it. So I'd like to talk about that now, if that's all right.
Yeah, anything I'm on your page with this. You talk about what you want. Absolutely.
Right. before I do, I'd just like to mention a few other things, okay? And that's, now, the other thing that they're claiming that this is really great for is autonomous cars, yeah? Now, they're saying driverless cars are, you know, the best thing since sliced bread, if you like. So what they're not telling us, though, is that driverless cars will rely on powerful radar systems. I think the preferred frequency seems to be 77 gigahertz. And that radiation will have to be at significant levels to detect small moving objects on landscapes. 77 gigahertz is part of the spectrum that is absorbed by the skin, so it'll affect our physiology. The transmitter will be inside the car with you, transmitting at close range. There will also be 10 radars and sensors on the outside spewing radiation in all directions. So thousands of cars spewing out radiation up to 250 meters in the long range. That is going to have a drastic effect on humans, plants, the ecosystem, and everything, okay? So they're also going to rely on the cameras. So, you know, once the smart city surveillance sets in, you know, they'll know who you're talking with in the car. They'll know what you're doing out of the car, in the street, in the home, with the Internet of Things, with all these machine-to-machine gadgets that we're supposedly all going to be rushing to buy, which is an absolute joke because no one can afford to replace their fridge and the freezer and, you know, all these things because of some new technology. I mean, people are working flat out, can hardly manage to pay the bills. And if something breaks down like the fridge or the freezer, something big, they're struggling. What are we going to do? We didn't plan for this, you know what I mean? And yet they seem to think that all of a sudden everyone is just going to, oh, let's all buy all this Internet of Things stuff, all this new stuff. It's a joke. Now, the other thing about it is as well, is that they will have the capability to basically drive you wherever they want. You know, I mean, who wants to give that sort of control to these corporations? Absolutely unbelievable.
I'm a sovereign being. And I value my sovereignty, and that includes my right to privacy. I don't do anything wrong as far as I'm considered, but that's up to me to determine and for me to observe myself, and I don't give any consent to anything outside of me to observe or manage me.
That's true. That's exactly, yeah, that is it, exactly. And hopefully other people feel that same way too. Now, the autonomous cars, I'm just going to mention this because I thought this was quite important. They are introduced via this Astria program, which began in 2006, which involves 7 companies. And the lead participant is a company called Thales, Thales, alongside an Israeli company called Elbit Systems. So Thales is responsible for the autonomous drones, and these companies were paid $1.1 billion by the Department of Defense under the Watchkeeper program since 2004. Now, it was reported that the drones were grounded because 2 of them crashed in Wales a couple of months ago. And so far, 1 has spent a short time in Afghanistan, while the rest have been sat in a hangar. So we're basically, that's a waste of £1.1 billion. But it's no deterrent to stop them being at the forefront of this technology. Now, the whole idea of this being progressive, this technology, it's an absolute joke because this Thales company have been heavily involved with European Commission's many programs to test 5G networks using these live stage events. And many of them include cars or vans, yeah, hitting people in terror attacks. It's obvious the reason why they're using these is because it's pushing the agenda for the autonomous cars. Oh, these cars hit people on the bridge. Oh, if we had autonomous cars, that wouldn't be able to happen, you know? So they're using this all the time. Now, this is where I'd like to talk about my research, okay?
Yeah.
About who's actually behind it. So if we go down the rabbit hole and discuss the security agencies' involvement in 5G and how this fits in with with what's occurred over the past few years. And now, I know this information, some people don't want to hear it. Some people disagree with it, but whatever. But I think it has to be taken into account and discussed, okay? Because now, as we know, social media communications are monitored and the data is collected on individuals. So everyone's profiled, in every area of our internet lives. I think we're all aware of that, yeah? But that's not enough for these security agencies, you see. They want to profile not just our internet lives, but also our daily lives, and that is why this is at the core of this technology. For those who might think that this is far-fetched, I can remind you of some comments made in 2005 on February the 8th by the US Air Force Lieutenant Colonel John Forsyth, who stated, "We are not in a war against nations or big armies. We are in a war against individuals." And that was reported by the Defense Daily. And in another report published by the Toffler Associates for the Defense Intelligence Agency, it states, "The enemies are individuals or groups who are a threat to national security and must be neutralized." So enemies seen as anyone who uses non-violent means to promote change. And think tanks and military reports constantly discuss the need to deal with information that they have on anyone who rejects their indoctrines as information warfare. So
It's just like Nazi Germany, isn't it? When you look at it, it's just the fascism at its utmost pushed in.
Well, it's that on steroids, isn't it? So if you're anti-corruption or anti-government or anti-corporation, you're going to be classed as a domestic terrorist. Now, we're in the realms of some really dangerous technology, aren't we, being in the hands of some very crazy people, okay? These people have got the capability to use mass surveillance and to weaponize the airwaves. The CIA are heavily involved in both the software and the hardware that is to be utilized in the Internet of Things and 5G technology. And I found out the other day that apparently the Internet of Things patent was created by Hillary Clinton. Now,
say no more.
Along with the NSA, so what I'm saying is the CIA are heavily involved, along with the NSA, the FBI, and other military agencies. Now, the CIA has got a venture capitalist company called In-Q-Tel. This company finances and invests in companies creating the applications for 5G technology and the Internet of Things. In 2012, David Petraeus, who was the head of the CIA, he attended the In-Q-Tel conference. Now, he mentioned some of the applications developed by In-Q-Tel, such as nanotechnology, embedded systems and devices for tagging and wireless sensors, and the need for the CIA to have a global intelligence network. And he states, items of interest will be localed, identified, monitored, and remotely controlled through technology, with persistent monitoring of anyone, anywhere, which is with the capability to allow us the collection and analysis of social media feeds. And he talks of In-Q-Tel being diabolically clever and helping keep the American intelligence agency at the forefront of the global innovation. So we can see who's behind this. Now, In-Q-Tel was founded by George Tenet in 1999, and he was the head of the CIA. Now, analysts have described this as a true totalitarian nightmare because they're going to be monitoring innocent people on a mass scale. In-Q-Tel are using taxpayers' money with a classified budget that in 2016 came under scrutiny because the Board of Trustees had more than half its members connected to the very companies that they were actually investing in. Now, just a few of the companies that they've invested in, because nobody knows exactly how many there is. They bought Palantir, which is a company that helps with spying. They've bought Infinite Power Solutions to develop the batteries for the RFID tracking chips. Thing Magic, that makes the RFID chips that can track anything. Gainspan, which finds ways to make everything Wi-Fi enabled, from the fridges to health monitoring devices. Image Tree Corp, which provides information on illicit crop growing.
What? Illicit crop
Yeah.
growing? Oh my God.
Fortius One and Geosemble, which map people and places and things instantly. 3VR, which creates video analysis to make surveillance videos Googleable. Recorded Futures, which mines websites, blogs and Twitter to predict the future by making invisible links. Apparently it's popular on Wall Street. They've even funded a campaign to create a skin product that developed a patent for a skin product that removes a thin layer of skin for DNA collection called Skin Sentinel Services. Now,
Scary.
this is just a small number of the vast amount of companies either started up or invested by the CNA. Now, a black budget of taxpayers' money, which is being used to create the software and hardware for the 5G technologies, and it's encompassing surveillance structures. Now, that doesn't make you shudder. I don't know what. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's in the interest of the security agencies globally to create scenarios that implement this technology that they're so heavily invested in. Yeah. So now I'd just like to turn your attention to David Petraeus. This is one character, this guy, I tell you. He's the ex-director of the CIA. Now, he was also in command of the U.S. Army. He's a U.S. Army general. He was appointed by Obama, and he was in command of all the military operations in Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan. Okay. Now, this is the same man who was in charge when a $500 million budget was given to the UK PR firm, which was started by Thatcher's PR man called Bell Pottinger. And what he did was he falsified images in the media of so-called insurgents, creating fake terror events for media outlets. He also was responsible for using DVDs that he created with the CIA that they left in the homes of those falsely accused in Iraq, and used the media to influence the public's views of events that were falsified and used as evidence. Now, this same man became the senior vice president of the oldest think tank in the world, the Royal United Services Institute, in 2013. This is the body that dictates to the media presentations of so-called terror attacks. Now, some months ago, he became a director of a private company called Optiv. He also invested in many cybersecurity firms. In July of last year, Optiv sponsored and attended the Black Hat USA event, which has been running for 20 years and is the world's leading information security event, providing attendees with leading information on the latest research and development in security. And that event was held at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. Now, just months later, we had the reported attack at Mandalay Bay Hotel. I then looked at other events that occurred, and sure enough, each one had a significant link to the testing of 5G. Now, I'm aware that many people refuse to believe that governments and the media and others could be party to staging events for the purpose of security and to test this new technology. But what I'm about to share with you needs to be understood fully without the emotional attachment to the events that are portrayed. Now, before I do, I think it's important just to recap the following, okay? So what we've got is the head of the CIA, David Petraeus, involved in pushing 5G technology for financial and surveillance purposes, who's already been reported to have used false evidence, videos and stories to con the public into thinking that these events portrayed in the media are true, who's now at the helm of a think tank, the oldest in the world, that is responsible for the presentations we receive from the media of events that we are told are terror related. So once a liar, always a liar.
Can I just say, I'm not surprised your YouTube channel's been cancelled with the knowledge you've got, honestly, Annie. Not that I want your YouTube channel to be cancelled, but they don't want your info out there.
Well, what I did was after that, let me tell you, I decided, because a lot of people weren't happy about me going, obviously. I didn't have loads of subscribers. I think I had about 5,000 or 6,000 at least. But so I thought, well, I'll make another channel, which I did do, and I called it Real Change Logic. And I created a video and I uploaded, and I said, look, this is what's happened. I've had my channel removed. I've made another channel. I'm going to be uploading some more stuff. I said, it's probably not worth me uploading the other stuff that I've already got strikes for, because they'll just do it again. And so, but that's all I got to put on there was that one video, and that was it. Because after that, I can't even get into YouTube now. They've completely and utterly blocked me. I can't even go onto YouTube and comment on anyone's videos.
Wow. I mean, I know there's a lot of activists who have created second channels, and they put a statement at the front that it's their personal property and they reserve the right to, to speak their truth. So you can't even get on.
Yeah. I can't even access or comment or nothing. They've completely and utterly just banned me from it altogether. But like I say, I'm on another network called 153.net. And I am going to try and get on Steam it as well. But like I say, I've got my website, so I will eventually just upload all my videos, because I've still got them all, and put them on my website. But there's just so much work to do, because I'm trying to keep my website going, but I'm also trying to keep abreast of all of this research. I've got a bit of interference. And I'm also trying to keep this mass action campaign going as well. So,
it's about getting it on a platform that is secure and you can trust, isn't it? So we'll have a chat after the show, because there might be something that we can I can signpost you to after the show, but I won't do it on air. So, okay.
Right, so I'll carry on anyway. So,
yeah.
5G technology is Tesla technology. Now, his work was seized in 1943 by Donald Trump's uncle, Professor John Trump. And Trump was reported to have claimed that his uncle told him that the destructive forces of the weapons that they've got for the future would be so massive that it would be a scary world. Now, the nature of the 5G technology is such that they've got to convince the public that they are in need of protection. And in this way, they can the massive surveillance global grid can be unleashed. So the CIA boss, Petraeus, holds a security conference at Mandalay Bay, Las Vegas, partnered with Cisco. And just prior to what happened at Mandalay Bay, Las Vegas partnered with Cisco. And they decided to test a pilot area in terms of security. Now, what they wanted was a real life environment. It also reported they wanted to test autonomous cars and people profiling. So what happens a couple of months later? We've got the supposed attack at Las Vegas. Now, in 2015, Cisco once again signed up with the French government to cover Paris in 5G testing on a data city project in Paris. Then months later, we had the Paris attacks. And in Berlin in March 2016, Berlin signed up for 5G testing to transform Berlin into a smart city. And of course, months later, we've got the Berlin truck attack. In Manchester, they were trialing 5G networks with two telecom companies. Then we had the attacks in Manchester.
Wow, I didn't know there was a correlation between all those.
Yeah, I mean, the attack in the Texas church was also 5G tests, because I found an article. I'm sorry I couldn't put all my links on there because there's just too many, and obviously I've lost a lot of them because of the YouTube channel going down. But I found an article that stated that AT&T were testing 5G in the Texas area in universities and churches. Now, what more proof can we get that these things are being stage managed? Now, why if you were AT&T and you wanted to, they were using something called Direct TV, and what they wanted to do was to be able to show in real time the events, and they were going to test it in a church. Now, if you were going to be doing such a thing in a church, you're not going to be testing, you're not going to be showing pictures of people praying and singing worldwide, because that's not going to make any ripples or anything. So they have to come up with something that will create that. So that's why we had the church event. Okay. So there's proof that every single, and I've made a video, you can find it on my website, and it links all of these, and it's also got, shows you all the different companies. And what I'm saying is actually, you can see it for yourself on my website, that all these events all coincide with what's happening with the 5G. Now this Parsons Green is a classic example of 5G testing, okay? Just days before it happened, the BBC, they changed their equipment to what was called New Tech Dialogue. And this was showcasing 5G equipment on a worldwide basis, using telecommunications for multimedia to streamline better connectivity to live events. Now, the main witness who was used constantly on multimedia outlets retelling this story, he actually contacted me on YouTube because I wanted to know, why this person was being the spokesperson for all of this. And he actually sent me a message on YouTube and said, oh, I was just an innocent bystander, But what I found was that he's got links to the BBC. He's a client advisor analyst for the BBC. He's been fully responsible for upgrades for equipment to the BBC in the past. And he had casually informed me that he'd been offered a job with the BBC at the same time. So we can show that I was shown that his connections to the new equipment and I told him that he was stage managing the whole event. He was stage managing the BBC's showcasing of this Parsons Green event, which just so happened to coincide with an international broadcasting conference in Belgium, where the BBC and New Tech Dialogue were bragging that they would be showcasing a live worldwide event, which is exactly what happened. So we can see, once again, that all these 5G stage events are connected. Now, there's many organisations that are funding the 5G technology, and many of them also speak of the need to simulate scenarios that involve disaster planning to showcase new ideas or products, or that involve private, public and government officers. Now, the European Conference on Networks and Communications had a conference in 2015 where many scenarios for smart technology were discussed, such as Obsolete, which is it's aerial-based stations for unexpected events. The project was outlined as in the aftermath of an emergency disaster or unexpected event, the communications infrastructure play an important part. So the Absolute project was rolled to evaluate communication scenarios and public safety. Now, another project was the Rescue Project, which was headed by the University of Surrey. And University of Surrey are heavily involved in the 5G technology. They're the ones who are supposedly doing the research on behalf of the telecommunications industry and the government. Now, this project called Rescue was going to provide links on the fly technology for smart communications. And their website talked of the need for emergency management after disasters, and it partnered with Thales again, that company that I messaged before. So another Respond project was involved with utilising and embedding new technologies to improve communications and response. Now, in the UK, we have the Transformation 2020 programme in Europe. We've got the Horizon 2020 programme. There's a Blue Light Innovation programme that involves testing of 5G technology to ensure it functions under pressure in remote areas. There was I co-researched with a guy called Carl Sale, and he's got Enchanted Path Live TV, and we basically, when the Welsh fire supposedly happened, where a farmhouse was supposedly burnt down in Wales, we both realised that there's something was completely odd about it. He'd done a lot of research and found out that the people that they were claiming had died and the names and everything were, that none of them added up. He went and done really deep research, and he found out that it couldn't have possibly happened the way they claim it happened. So I also looked into the whole, the Mid and West Wales service, and they just upgraded to 5G technology, and they were testing the equipment. And they were due to talk at the Blue Light Services meeting just some months later after this supposed fire happened. They were due to give a talk, and the Blue Light Services, what was on the agenda, this was in last October, a speech from the Home Office Director of Communications about the practicing of emergency situations in public places, private addresses and crises in specific areas. And the conference, called the Blue Light Event, was attended by central government's head of many organisations, including the police, ambulance and fire brigade. So what I'm trying to show people is that we can establish that events that test 5G are being utilised by many agencies, and they're using public disaster scenarios or terror-related events. So we can see also, that when these events happen, the areas are testing 5G. We can see that these companies are obviously talking about having disaster scenarios to test the 5G technology. There's lots and lots of different agencies that are doing this, openly stating that they're doing it. And then we've also got the CIA behind all this technology, software and hardware. So I think we can safely say that, what we can see what the agenda is here. Okay. So now with that, I'd like to just have a break because my throat's starting to go a bit. So I'm going to get a glass of water.
Well, that might be a good point in time where we can play the video, which is about the urgent forbidden information. So we can maybe play that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so it'll be about 14 minutes long. So we'll play that video and then we'll carry on talking after that. So if you could run the video, Biggie, that would be fabulous.
All right, folks, this is Joe Umbriano, and once again, we're in a lot of trouble. I don't know why people seem to think it's okay to let them get irradiated. I don't understand what's the matter with you people. Do you think these systems that they're putting up on these towers are there so you can watch Netflix and play video games on your phone while you're taking a dump? Do you not realize what is in store for people right now? Do you realize what they're doing with this stuff? Do you realize what this stuff does? These towers are weaponry. These systems are weaponized. I'm going to go over a couple things with you. I've gone over a lot of things in the past, but I'm going to keep hitting on this because it's not sinking in. Most people are in a trance. Most people are zombies. Most people are self-absorbed, myopic children, even though they're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, even 80 years old. They just want to go and stare at the TV and cuddle up with their little blankie and stay on their merry-go-round and microwave their Hot Pockets. Folks, we are being herded into the compact cities, and they're putting the towers in. Now they're going to be putting in the microcells instead of these huge towers that are already in place. with power generating systems the size of shipping containers next to them, with cables 4 and 5 inches in diameter capable of handling hundreds of thousands of volts, what, for 5 watts of power? Are you freaking kidding me? Okay. What's coming is a kill grid. Make no bones about it. These people, tell your kids we're overpopulated. These people that run things like Mr. Gates, Prince Philip, Mr. Rockefeller, the Rothschilds, all these people talk about how to reduce the population to 95% down from what it is right now. We're in the midst of a silent war. They're not going to fire a shot, folks. They're going to cook you. And they're going to do it with invisible radio frequency emissions that you're addicted to and in love with, because your junk works no matter where you go. You got to have your texts. You got to have your emails. You got to check your Facebook. Look, I know. I'm a salesman. I'm on the road. I'm in the field. I'm in the office. I need to be in touch with people. People need to be in touch with me. I'm a researcher. I'm an activist. I need to be in touch with people. People need to be in touch with me. But at what cost? Now, the frequencies that they're deploying are weaponized frequencies. And I'm going to explain this to you. Right now, the Wi-Fi in your house is 2.4 gigahertz. That's the frequency that stuff broadcasts on. Now, you can't open up a radio station without an FCC license. You got to have a license to broadcast, and you've got to be given access to certain frequencies to broadcast on. That's called spectrum. They allot certain spectrum to certain companies, and if you haven't figured it out, your parents and your grandparents were watching the idiot box on the spectrum that was opened up 80 years ago, and the radio stations and the TV stations are controlled by 5 companies. Now they're probably controlled by 3 or 2. They have been feeding you lies for decades and decades and decades. You can't broadcast unless the FCC gives you a license. Now what they've done is the most harmful frequencies imaginable. You know, the 2.4 gigahertz, that happens to be the frequency that the water molecules start to rotate on their axis when they're hit with the radio frequency emissions at that particular frequency. Why are they messing with the water molecules? Well, we're 70% water, and they know what this stuff does. So what the FCC did is they opened up that frequency band, that part of the spectrum, to everybody. You don't need a license to broadcast on it. And you know what that did? That virtually ensures complete proliferation and saturation of radio frequency emissions in that part of the spectrum. In other words, they want to bathe you in the frequency that messes with the water molecules. Is that a good idea? That's not a good idea. Maybe you're not aware of this. So they got you addicted to Wi-Fi and your gadgets. They're doubling down now because they're coming out with a new frequency. Because they claim that you can't get enough of your Netflix and enough of your stupid movies or whatever you have to check, that these frequencies are getting congested. There's too much traffic. It's a bunch of frickin' hogwash, folks. Everything works just fine right now. The systems that are in place with these towers is so overkill it's not even funny. They could run 100,000 times more devices than they're using right now. They got you addicted to these devices. Now they're going to bring a new technology out. This really scares me to go into this because this is the end. They've opened up, the FCC's opened up the millimeter wave band, and they're going to be broadcasting on 60 gigahertz, folks. Wi-Fi right now is using the frequency of water molecules. Their rotation on their axis begins at 2.4 gigahertz. In other words, that's the spot on the spectrum of the trillions of frequencies. That's the spot on the spectrum where the maximum dielectric loss of water begins. That's a fancy term for when they start rotating, trying to line up to keep pace with the alternating field, electromagnetic field. So it causes water molecules to vibrate on their axis. Well, they're going to use 60 gigahertz for the new 5G and the new Wi-Fi. It's called WiGig. Okay? You need to understand something. This stuff is wicked because 60 gigahertz is the oxygen molecule absorption spectrum. I repeat that. This is the frequency that the oxygen molecules start reacting to. So they're using Wi-Fi to mess with the water. They're going to use WiGig and 5G to mess with the oxygen. Now this crap doesn't travel far, so they got to put them really close together. They're going to put these little transmitters all over the light poles, telephone poles, light poles, public buildings, and you've got to put it in your house because the crap's not going to work. And I keep saying crap because this is crap. It's a weapon. And they're going to get you to go to Costco and bring it home in big boxes, and you're going to put it all over your house because you're stupid and you're not listening to me. You need to understand something. You need to stop killing yourselves, okay? That's what these people have managed to get you to do. They have managed to get you to kill yourselves and enjoy it. And kill your children and pay for it. WiGig, 5G, 60 gigahertz. Get that through your skulls. You don't mess with oxygen molecules. Oxygen is in the air. We breathe it. It comes from the trees. Trees make it out of carbon dioxide. I think we've all been taught this. It's two oxygen molecules and they share electrons. When you hit oxygen molecules with 60 gigahertz millimeter wave emissions, it affects the orbital properties of the electrons of the oxygen molecules. Now, why is that important? How is oxygen absorbed into your body? Well, it's pretty complicated and it's miraculous what God has done, how He's created our bodies and He's created these mechanisms, and He created a molecule called hemoglobin, and it binds to the iron. You know that iron is magnetic. Have you ever heard of the word magnetobiology? If any of you out there are physicians or doctors or physicists or biochemists or any type of researchers, I bet you've never heard of that field of study. I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry and I have a bachelor's degree in biological science. And when I went to UCI for 5 years, none of the curriculum included anything remotely close to the interactions of electromagnetic fields with living tissue. They don't want you to know about how this works because this is a secret stealth weapon that they're touting as the neatest thing since sliced bread. It is right now making up the majority of the economy. And if this technology was to be exposed for what it truly is, it would collapse the economy. They've got everything intertwined in this. The pension funds are infested with investments in these companies. They're rolling this out so fast, and they're passing laws at the federal and the state and the local levels to where you can't say no to this crap. And they built this whole infrastructure's legal ability to exist on research that was done in the 1980s, and it was passed in 1996 by that dirtbag Bill Clinton. Yes, Bill Clinton signed the Telecom Act. He is the one that put the death knell to humanity, okay? He's the one. They're using 30-year-old research that was rigged from the get-go, and now they're rolling out technology that they've never even publicly released the testing on. They know what this stuff does. That's why they're doing it. They know what this stuff is capable of. That's why they're rolling it out. And they used a framework from 30-year-old rigged research 22 years ago to get this thing put in. So where the companies that have access to public right-of-ways only have to pay a small amount of money because the city has to give them access. And any tower under 150 feet, no one's regulating the emissions. No one's checking the power levels. No one's babysitting these weapons, folks. You're going to bring this crap in your house. They're going to put this stuff outside your house, and it's going to affect the oxygen molecules. Here's what they're going to do. When you start affecting the oxygen molecules' ability to bind to the hemoglobin in your blood, you can't transport the oxygen into your tissues. Okay? It does other things to your body that I'm not going to go into right now. I'll briefly touch on it right now. Actually, I'll tell you real briefly, it also affects your ability to produce vitamin D. It affects your body's ability to produce vitamin D. 60 gigahertz is a weapon. It affects the oxygen molecules, and it affects your skin's ability to produce vitamin D. Your skin produces vitamin D when sunlight hits your skin. It produces a reaction in your skin whereby your body begins to manufacture vitamin D. It also, the same thing happens when the sunlight goes through your eyes. Okay? That's why they got you wearing sunglasses and contacts. So they got you blocking all the sun. They don't want you in the sun, folks. They want you deficient. I don't want to get off track here. The bottom line is this stuff is a weapon. You need to wake up, and you need to understand that it doesn't travel far. Trees block it. The low-E film on your windows blocks it. Mylar film blocks it. Metal screens blocks it. You can buy paint that blocks it. Don't bring this crap into your house. Because if you have this stuff in your house, it's a slow kill, folks. Because what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to have the oxygen levels in your blood that your body needs to survive. You're not going to die immediately from this stuff. It's just going to cause all kinds of weird health problems. And guess what they're going to do? It's going to create symptoms, because I know for a fact what this stuff does. There are 2 locations in the United States where this was rolled out in schools. And it produced paralysis, arrhythmia, neurological problems, problems with tingling in the extremities, people passing out, people having fatigue, malaise, all these bizarre ailments. I guarantee you, folks, when they roll this stuff out, they're going to turn it on in such a way that it's going to seem like polio came back. And you know what they got ready for you? A vaccine. What do we hear about all the time on the news now? Vaccines, vaccines, vaccines. I'm in California, and guess what? You can't put your kids in one of these government mind control facilities unless you inject them with like 60 shots. Now, if you have any brains, you won't go for that, and you'll find a way out of it. And you know how to do that. You can homeschool your kids. Or you can get a medical exemption. You got to do what you got to do to protect your children. Now, they are going to roll out a microwave weaponry system that is going to induce symptoms that people are going to think are a new type of virulent strain of polio or some sort of neuroinvasive encephalitis or some sort of paralytic disease that they're going to blame on some newly discovered strain of something, and they're going to have a shot ready for you. And they're going to make it mandatory. Mark my words, that's the plan here. Aside from the fact that this stuff's going to make you sick and it's going to screw everybody up, it's going to make a lot of people very wealthy. And it's going to concentrate power because a sick, weak-minded populace becomes servile and slaves really quick. There's a big push to get everybody into the compact cities. There's a big push to build high-density housing. There's a big push to go 10 stories, put Wi-Fi routers everywhere, have free Wi-Fi everywhere, have all these things in place, folks. They're putting chemicals in the water. You've got to filter your water if you're going to drink it. You've got to grow your own food. You can't eat this stuff in the store. You don't know what's in it. Now they got these weapons that they've put into the classrooms, they've put into the schools, they've put them into the buses, the trains, the planes. The cars got Wi-Fi in them now. And now you go outside, you look at your phone, there's 50 networks when you're walking down the street. There's cell towers everywhere. And then now they put these LED lights in so it's white light at night so you can't sleep. It's messing up your sleep cycle. Folks, wake the heck up. Okay? You're not going to hear this at church. You're not going to hear this at school. You're not going to hear it on TV. TV is a bunch of pornography and crazy movies. The churches are all sold out. They're not talking about nothing. They're just collecting your money and putting you to sleep. And the schools are making everybody stupid. So where are you going to hear this information? On the internet. And you better get with the program before they shut it all down. This is Joe Briano warning you to wake the hell up. Thank you.
Welcome back. And if anybody watched that video, I mean, I watched 3 interviews today to prep for this show. The one that Annie did with Richie Allen last week, the one that Mark Steele did, this interview that this chap just done. And if you're not surprised, shocked, feeling the need to do something about this, then maybe you're not alive, because it will affect every single living being on this planet. Every biological being is going to be impacted by this. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Annie.
Yeah, I think it's people need to realise the dangers of it, and not just health, you know, what it can do to us on a medical level, but also it's as far as I'm concerned, I call it a weapon of mass destruction, because it's a device where they can actually brainwash. They can mass brainwash people, and they can destroy humans and the ecosystem. So they can, I mean, the ability to use radio frequencies to impair the brain and create false thoughts has been in practice for you know, many years. They used it, the troops in Russia, they used it on the troops in Russia to make them, turn them into human weapons. The Americans used the technology in the 90s to make the Iraqi soldiers surrender. So they thought they heard voices in their head. This has got the potential to use this technology both physically and emotionally and mentally. Is the most dangerous technology that we could ever face, and it's been used. It's been used as a weapon to disperse crowds for riot purposes in the past. The able danger that the Americans use to utilize the millimeter waves that actually burn the skin. There's a woman called Susan Clark, and you should go and check her out on YouTube. She's done extensive research on 5G, and she says that there are 15 different lengths of waves, 10 are millimeter, and so can affect our skin cells, DNA reproduction, create and trigger diseases and death. 4 are from 2 to 4 inches, and 1 is 20 inches. So that just about covers all the areas of the human body. So it can affect your brain waves. Our brain waves resonate at 7.83, and they're being affected with these waves, and that's affecting our immunity, creating mental and physical bad health, and not just the health of us, but the health of the creatures and all. This is what I'd like to talk about, the bees. Now, there's plenty of studies that show that bees have been affected by EMF radiation. I think they've done some sort of study where they tested them by putting mobiles at the entrance of their beehives, and they were so disorientated that they basically all died. Now we know that bees are affected by EMF radiation, but also affected by other things as well, like pesticides and herbicides and all things like this. But the bees are like the coal miners' canaries, rather. When they use them to test to see if the air's clear. Now, I found it really disturbing because I've seen a link on someone shared a link on Facebook, my friend Deborah, and she shared a link, and it said that they've actually patented robot bees. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I'm wondering what that noise is. Any ideas? Lost it. Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Right, I've got that. I'll share a screen now because we've got the image of the bees that you was talking about.
Yeah.
Share screen. Okay, so you can see it there.
So, so my friend was showing me that they filed a patent for autonomous robot bees. I mean, I find that incredibly sad, because this company, it's been actually, the patent's been put forward by Walmart. Now, Walmart are partnered with the Homeland Security. They've been partnered with Homeland Security since 2010. So for this company who's heavily involved with these same people who are creating these dangerous technologies that causes the disappearance of these bees, for them to actually want to patent and create drone autonomous bees, it's just like, it's as if they want to kill everything natural and just create this. Everything has to be robotic, like they want to turn nature into some sort of robotic. It's just disgraceful, it's really upsetting.
I just wanted to come in as well because you was talking about 7.83 hertz. That's a Schumann resonance, and most beings on the planet are actually vibrationally matched to the Earth's frequency. So that's why biological beings are not surviving, because it's just distorting the frequencies.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah. I think one of the other things as well that's affecting us on a health level is the lighting that's been changed, because now they're putting all this at completely white light in the streets, which is the
Yeah.
LED lighting, and that's causing problems for our health as well, because that suppresses melatonin, because it's a weapon. It's deployed as a they claim it's for energy saving, but what's the point of energy saving if it wears you down and it creates bad health in people? It's harmful for the body. Bright white light stops you from getting a proper sleep. And obviously we know that when you go to sleep, that's when your melatonin is released, and that helps the body to fight all the problems, diseases, all the stuff that you've got in your body that then needs cleansing during sleep. So they're stopping this even by we need moonlight, that bright white moonlight once a month. When it's a full moon, we don't need it every single bloody night. And I think it caused something called sepsis. So it's a degradation of the processes that our body create to help us to stay healthy. So they are creating this light on purpose to keep us in this state of bad health. Didn't you say something earlier about that? Because I found that really interesting, what you said earlier.
I didn't actually say anything about sepsis, but
no, about the
white
light.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was quoting something that I'd heard from Mark Steele earlier. I think it might have been when we was off air, but it was about the microwave frequencies, how they did the testing on body mass of 200 pounds. So basically anything under 200 pounds in body mass, it's more impactful. So, for example, when you cook a chicken, the smaller the chicken, the less time you put it in the oven because it cooks quicker. So the higher the EMFs that are actually coming out, or the frequencies from this equipment, the more it's impacting smaller beings. So you've got your bees, you've got your insects, you've got your small animals, your children, and they're saying it's that the size of a child's brain is impacted by 46% more than an adult's brain because of the size of them and the body mass, which is quite scary, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, obviously, the thing about this technology and all the research and everything that goes with it, like I said, I've only been looking into this for the past 6 months, but I mean, every day you find more and more information out with your research that you just go, holy shit, and it's just like that. It's never ending. It's, there's so much information, and it's great that, there's other people. And I think Mark Steele's absolutely amazing that he's actually fighting his corner in Gateshead. And he's just out there. He's just right out there. He's contacting the council. He's demanding answers. He's telling, he's saying this is not lawful. You can't use this technology without, even informing the public, never mind asking them for their consent. They're not even telling them that they're doing this.
It's so dangerous.
There is areas that are pushing these programs out. Now, some of them are actually been made public, but a lot of the time they're not even made public. I mean, there is in March 2017, the Chancellor announced a 4-year 5G testbed and trial program with £16 million invested in the first phase, called the 5G Innovation Network, involving the University of Surrey, Bristol and King's College. Now, University of Surrey and Bristol and King's College, they created this test bed for this 5G program. Now, you'll find that University of Surrey comes up over and over and over again. Okay. Now, tests were carried out in real world environments in last year in Basingstoke, Brighton, Malvern Hill Science Park and Tyne Wear. Now, what they done was they stated that they were going to hold a competition, and the winners were going to be made public about a week ago, or just over a week ago. So when it came round to stating who the winners were, I realised that these were the same people who were involved in phase 1. So this was no competition, because the 6 winners that were announced, were included two of the universities that had created the testbed trial program in the first place. So they were involved in the testbed trial programs back in 2017, and this supposedly were going to be collaborating with other companies in conjunction with this, as well as councils. So we can see it was a lot of bullshit. It wasn't a competition. It was a follow-on from what they'd already been done. It was the 25 million grant to allow the same companies and research agencies to carry on, but it also involved other local authorities. But the winners, well, I'll just let you know what they are, the areas that win. I mean, what the hell? What do you win? Right, so the winners were stated as being Orkney Islands, Shropshire Farms, Somerset. Bearing in mind, this is just like a week ago. Okay, so Shropshire Farms, Somerset, West of England Combined Authority, Bath and Bristol, Worcestershire County Council, Liverpool, Cumbria, Northumberland, North Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, Inverness, Perthshire and Monmouthshire. Now, these are all the areas that are so lucky that they've, we're going to be getting going to be test beds of this 5G technology. So I would suggest if anybody's listening to this and you live in any of those areas, that you take it upon yourself to contact your local authority or council or whoever it is that's getting involved in this, and let them know that you don't consent to it, because these areas, these agencies and these areas are covering, we're going to cover rural areas, tourism, health, autonomous vehicles and drones. There's the government agencies, there's government agencies that have been created specifically to enhance this technology. Innovate UK, which was, it used to be called the Technology Strategy Board up to 2015. Well, basically they're using taxpayers' money to finance advancing technologies. They don't have to answer to anyone. It's never discussed in the public arena. And they're a bit like a miniature DARPA, or like a venture capitalist company but obviously they're using taxpayers' money to finance businesses and technology specific to this 5G technology. Now you've also got, was you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, going back to the David Steele interview, Mark Steele interview, he was talking about how they placed them strategically on the lampposts, and yeah. you sent me an article earlier about the lampposts, so I just wondered if you wanted me to share that too.
Yeah, share that.
Yeah, so I don't know if you wanted to talk through that, so I'll share the screen now. Yeah. So Lambeth.
Yeah, 5G ready small cells coming to Lambeth. Now, if you scroll down from that, you'll see that this Arqiva company are very highly involved in not just in the smart cells, but they're also highly involved in the smart meters. In 2015, they signed a 6-year deal with Thames Water to cover 3 million homes with smart meters. Now, they are owned by a company called Macquarie, who owned Thames Water at the time. So we can see that's an obvious conflict of interest. If this company owns Thames Water and then they're giving, their own shareholders the deals to cover all everywhere with these smart meters. So, and they also own the critical national UK infrastructure that enables 8,000 cellular sites, and they I think they're the ones who first showed a BBC broadcast. They partnered with Samsung to launch these field trials of 5G in the UK. So that's a company that's also under my radar that I've been doing a lot of looking into what they are actually up to, because you always have to follow the money. No matter what, you always follow the money, because you can guarantee that whoever is involved in this, you can always find that they've got some sort of financial deal going on in the background. You know,
And what's
so,
shocking is how influential it is on government decisions, on policy making, and how many, like you say, conflict of interest actually are when you just dig a little. It doesn't take much digging to actually see it these days, does it?
no, not at all. And this is something that we need to be. This is something we need to highlight, because these people who are creating these, who are stating that this technology is safe and all that. Now, anybody at all who is involved in this in a financial way or any way whatsoever is getting anything from it has got no right to be given, not even to be given the chance to decide whether it's safe or not. Because once you've got a conflict of interest like that, then your opinion shouldn't matter at all. And that should go through everything. And it's like you say, there's so many corporations and government. It's like a revolving door. They go from one company to another, and one government agency to another, and then they make sure they put into place. It's just one big club, and we're not members of it, are we? So
I'm just randomly sharing some of your screens here, so just so people can see how much information you've actually been gathering on this.
Yeah, that's in QTEL. That's the big CIA venture capitalist company that I was talking about earlier. So people can go and do a bit of research on QTEL if they want to. But like I say, they are highly involved in all the 5G technology, and they are right behind all the Internet of Things and the whole works, basically. So there's also there's another department called the Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport. Now, just up until 2017, this department was called the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. But all of a sudden they decided to put the digital in front of it. So we've got this department, this government department. They distribute the funds to the BBC and Channel 4, so they can use the BBC to deliver their objective about 5G and Channel 4. They can just, that's it. They've got the attention of the public, or those people who watch this crap. Department of Digital, they made a guy called Matt Hancock the Minister of State for Digital. Well, he's now become the Secretary of State for Digital as of January in 2018. Now, he's an ex-economist for the Bank of England. This is the same man who came up with the idea of using the Church of England to install all this 5G technology on the infrastructure. So he's formed a memorandum of understanding in promoting 5G in the areas of digital, sport, media and culture with Saudi Arabia, of all countries. This is just recently. And this shows this shows the mentality and what we're dealing with these people. I mean,
Actually,
how are yeah.
I have got something to add in. There's something, because I've been following this QAnon stuff and just keeping an open mind about it, but what somebody posted that was against Trump, that image where he's seen holding a ball in Saudi Arabia with the guys with the robes on? It's supposed to be like mirroring something off a Simpsons cartoon. They did the image on I don't know if you've seen it, but they're saying it's the rollout of the 5G. It's supposed to symbolise that.
Well, maybe so. I haven't really looked at, that much into it. But,
yeah, I don't know if it is, but it's curious. Well,
the thing is, they like to use a lot of predictive programming, don't they, to let us know what they're up to. I'm thinking that this Elon Musk rubbish, where they supposedly launched the Tesla car into space. I think that might be them saying this is the Tesla, because don't forget 5G technology is Tesla technology. So I'm thinking that this is them, tongue-in-cheek telling each other this is the...
yeah, because the cars aren't even Tesla technology, are they?
It's a load of... I mean, we all know it's a load of crap, a car in space, come on. Yeah, do you know what I mean? It made me piss and laugh anyway.
I think it was a comedy episode, that one.
Yeah, no, I thought it was. I was thinking that they're tongue in cheek, just saying this is the 5G technology taking off, you know, and lots of people actually believe that a car took off in space. But so anyway, yeah, they do like the predictive programming, you know, in whatever form they can get it. So I was just talking about these different companies now. Oh, there's this one. National Infrastructure Commission. They've been tasked by the government apparently to decide about 5G technology and the infrastructure and what we can and we can't do and all the rest of it. But when you think of it, it sounds like National Infrastructure Commission, like they've been going for years and years, and they've been involved in the infrastructure for years. This commission was only just set up a couple of years ago. And the people who are involved in it, set up in 2015, the members have got no connection whatsoever to the bloody infrastructure. Now, they were asked to provide expert advice on 5G. The chairman is a guy called Lord Adonis, who was an advisor to Tony Blair, and he's a board member of a thing called the Policy Network. Now, that's a think tank with Tony Blair as the chairman. The Policy Network is a secretariat for what's called the Progressive Governance Network, which brings heads of states, of government ministers and politicians together to address globalization. It was also launched by the Clintons in 1999. So we can see these government agencies involved with 5G, they're also part of the globalist agenda. Like I said, with a revolving door of participants who push to have the 5G technology as part and part of the depopulation agenda. Because I think this is exactly what this is all about. It's all about the depopulation agenda. And another thing, have you noticed about all the trees that are getting chopped down? There's absolutely, I think in London, the London councils have removed, I think I left you a link to this as well. The London councils have removed 50,000 trees in 5 years. And many reports are coming in of trees being removed throughout the UK, sometimes supposedly in the middle of the night with no explanation. And I know that Sheffield Council are removing 17,500 highway trees and lying to the public about the numbers. So we can see the trees block the EMF radiation.
I was just going to say that. It's the only place I feel sort of like free from the EMFs when I go into woods and forests.
Yeah, so they are purposely cutting down healthy trees. They're even making up some sort of disease that they've got, but nobody's ever seen it or heard of it before. I'm not quite sure what that's called now. But, we're having this problem where all these trees are being cut down, and it's all to do with this same technology being pushed, because obviously the trees are going to block the dangerous millimeter waves. So they're basically going to saturate everywhere with small cell towers. They're trying to utilize existing lampposts and other structures, as Mark has been stating in his videos. So we're going to be completely swamped with dangerous frequencies inside and outside with no escape, and I mean, the Internet of Things, what's all that? I mean, who needs to be able to see the milk going off in the fridge while we're on the other side of town? Do we really need this? So this is all this dangerous stuff, all in the name of technology. So I would urge people, don't just say, that's bad. The thing is, this is life or death now. We've got to realise that this is life or death. This is a technology. They can use brain entrainment. There's actually brain hacking. There's patents, okay? There's a patent, and it's number 6011991, called remote neural monitoring or brain hacking. And there's another one patent called number 3951134 called brain manipulation. So they've got the tools to catalogue your thoughts and communications using electromagnetic waves and they can target whole populations. They've got the facilities to target individuals or whole communities from remote locations. So now, I know in 1974 a resolution was introduced before the UN General Assembly to ban environmental warfare, which is exactly what it is. That's what 5G is. It's environmental warfare. And they're at war, people. They're at war with you. They're at war with your children. They're at war with your life. They're at war with your health. And we are in a silent war. And this is what frustrates me so much, because
you know what I was thinking before? I was stroking, I've got 2 cats and there's a dog, and I was like thinking the impact on these small animals and how much I love them, and if I was to watch them get really sick in front of me and it feels out of my control, and then I think about people with children and women with their hair falling out and nosebleeds and kidneys failing and joints seizing up. This is how serious this is. It literally is going to change every single biological being's health, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is, and it's only by people go and do a little bit of research for themselves. I mean, I've spoke to so many people recently, well, quite a lot lately, because I just speak to people all the time. If I go to town or go to the shops or anything, and I'll just talk, someone just starts talking, I just mention about, oh, do you know about 5G? And they go, oh, not really. And when you do, even if you just lightly skirt over it, lightly, just give them the basic facts. If you look at the leaflet on my website, it just gives the basic facts. How dangerous it is. The technology has already been proven to be dangerous, what we're already getting. This is like 1,000 times worse. All the different problems that it can cause, and what 5G technology can cause. They can use this to manipulate whole populations. They could even turn the frequencies up and fry our brains. They could mulch our brains. They could make us, turn us aggressive and turn us all against each other, so that everybody's fighting. They've been doing this. This is technology that they've been using for a long, long time. They've used it in Iraq. They used it in Russia. They even mentioned using it at the North Korean Winter Olympics. Just recently, they said we are showcasing 5G technology for the first time, and we're going to use it. We're going to be emitting rays, and we're going to be spewing out some sort of substance, all to frighten off the wild boars around the Olympic stadium. So, this is what they can do with it.
This is what I want to come in what Mark Steele said. Apparently when they do any weapons testing, they always do it on pigs. And the reason they do it on pigs is because it's the closest animal to humans.
Yeah, that's right. And it's funny you should say that, because I've done a lot of research on the where the whole swine flu came from. Okay, and it's sort of, there's a company that's involved with that, and they first started out when they were testing pigs for the porcine, some porcine disease. They started using this this technique of electroporation, which I was talking about, which is where they pulse a wave and open the cell. This was first used on pigs. So this is why we ended up with swine flu. Well, we haven't ended up with swine flu. They would have liked us to end up with swine flu. If they'd have had their way, they would have liked us to end up with swine flu, or whatever it is that they claim it is, which basically would be in the vaccines. So the whole point is, pretend there's a pandemic, introduce the vaccine. And it's the same with 5G technology. That technology could actually create problems in your cell that would mimic any virus that they choose. Okay, they could say, oh, you've got a pandemic, look, and they've created it, and then they would turn around and give everyone vaccines. We're looking at the future. We're looking at the humanity's death knell in the future if we don't stop this technology now. I can't even stress how freaking.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying, because I've looked at a lot of stuff that you have, but even for people who this might be new to, and they might think that what we're discussing here is a bit too far reaching for them to consider, just think about the basic science of it, the basic biology. So I've just got something on screen here where it shows how 5G could work, and it says it's 100 times faster than 4G. So they're pitching it as a benefit, but actually it's literally thousands of times more damaging to the biological cell of the body. And why do we need faster internet? Well, you can't watch the movies any faster than you're watching, or there's so much accessibility there right now. It's just ridiculous.
Exactly, and that is proven by experts in the field who have already stated, a professor who's ex-director of Ofcom who's already stated that you can't see any viable reason why we even need 5G. And it's obvious we don't need 5G. We do not need Internet of Things, because in the end we will become the things. That's the whole point about this. They want to turn people into transhumans. They want to give you microchips. They want to, they want people to. They talk about transplanting people memories and transplanting people's emotions, and they talk about people don't need to be human in the future. We could be like half human, half robot. I don't want to be half Roman and half human and half robot. I want to be human. I don't want to see robotic bees either. I don't want to see all the trees, and like have problems breathing, because that's exactly what will happen if they can use 60 gigahertz, which interferes with our oxygen levels. Then we're going to have problems with breathing. That's going to cause so much more problems. The whole thing is an absolute nightmare. It's a nightmare of nightmares. And I'm saying to people, the reason why we started the campaign, and we're trying to do it in such a way that we don't want to bring fear. We don't want people to just go, bury their head in the sand and say, there's nothing I can do, we're all doomed, that's the end of that. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to bring it from the perspective of, we're doing this because we care. We're doing this, it's coming from the heart, and we love people and humanity and everything. And we're trying to bring it, we're trying to bring this information in such a way that we can say, we're taking our power back. Thank you very much.
And I'm glad you said that, Annie, because for me, I try to, even though I disclose or get guests on who disclose some quite horrible, unimaginable stuff on this show, I always aim to do it with a space or an energy of getting people to believe that we are the ones that make the changes. So when we're informing people through this information, it isn't to put you into fear, because fear is where they want you. It's about taking your power back, caring about your children, your animals, humanity, the planet, and realising how important it is that we stand as sovereign beings against this tyranny. That's what it is. It's a tyranny, and we're not even told what it's really doing.
Yeah, exactly. We need to, this is the thing. We all need to realise how much power we do hold within ourselves. We need to realise they're the ones who are scared, because they are the few and we are the many.
But I think that's the why. That's why they're doing this. Because we are the creators of this reality through our consciousness. And once we can shift from fear and become the living beings that we truly are, it's game over for them. That's why I believe the technology is part of the plan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, interfering with our natural connection to our, even to the Earth's frequency.
Source energy.
Yeah, exactly. So by doing this, I'm not trying to get anyone in a place of fear or anything or any. The last thing I'd like to do. I believe in people being aware. The more aware you are, and the more research you do, the more you're able to understand what's happening, and not just that, but be able to talk to other people about it, to make other people understand. I think it's so important that now what we need to be doing is talking about it openly to our family and our friends and our neighbours and anybody who listen, anybody, because only by doing that can people actually say, actually, I'm not consenting to this. I don't want this technology. I'm not that bothered about having faster broadband speeds or connectivity if it means, the health, suffering the health of any more people who are already suffering badly as it is. And also, we're not taking any more of your bullshit, you people who claim to be in power. We want you out, because you're all corrupt. you're all in bed with each other, and you're all liars, and you've got no humanity. And we actually need to take back our humanity, because these people, to me, they don't seem human inside. They've lost their humanity by creating this world that they've created, where everybody's, divided and conquered through wars and whatever it is, they'll use that. So we want to bring people back together again. That's the idea.
And I think one of the biggest divisive methods they use now is misinformation. So when somebody like yourself is putting the truth out there, and then they'll ridicule people like you, like me, or anybody who's open-minded as conspiracy theorists, or they'll imply that we're paranoid because we think the world's going to get us and everything's going to attack us. But in reality, we are here just shouting out for the truth, and we're saying the same thing, that we are powerful and we don't need to be governed. Yeah, and I'm not saying that as some, terrorist anarchist. I say this as a sovereign being who's connected to source energy. And once you bring in that source energy, you act in a loving way. You don't need to police us. We will police ourselves in a loving way.
Of course. I mean, I think people have been they've done a good job of brainwashing people, using what they've used. And it's time for us to not call people names. Don't be calling people sheep and all this
I agree.
thing. It's not working, and all you're doing is you're helping them by not communicating. Divide and conquer needs to stop.
Yeah. And I was one of those people once. I believe the government protected us. I believe that doctors were out, and I think the individual doctors do go into the profession to help people, most of them, but they're being controlled by the system. I've seen people recover from cancer who were sent home to die by the system by using natural remedies. And once you start to see this and you realise how it's closed down upon and not reported upon, and people are ridiculed for sharing this truth, so you realise that something's not right in the overarching power structure. And we've given our power away. They're not in power. They're civil servants. They're supposed to be serving civilians.
Exactly. So maybe it's time to get off your knees, folks. That's what I think.
So we're coming towards the end of the show, Annie, and I know you could talk a lot more because you've got so much information on this. And obviously we want to signpost people to your website, but just remind everybody again about the mass action page and what people can do to contribute, and share videos like this, Richie Allen interviews, any interviews that are getting people informed. Share it far and wide, then start looking at how we can tackle this on a legal perspective. Start writing to your MP, start doing everything. What would you like to add to that, Annie?
Yeah, so you can join the mass action campaign on Facebook. You can go and find a group that I've started called Research 5G and shed light on it. There's also other groups on Facebook. Anyone can join Stop 5G UK. Quite a few different groups, Smart Meters, EMF Warriors, where you can get all the information that you need. I've also got my website, which is at www.vigiliae.org. Annie Logical Uncensored. So if you want to join the campaign, please do. I mean, that's exactly what we want. We want more people. Obviously the campaign on Facebook is for 2 weeks, but that's because that's the length of time you get to have a campaign. This campaign's not for 2 weeks. This campaign is going to carry on until we put a stop to these dangerous technologies. So I just say thanks for having me on. Thanks for people if you stuck with it for 2 hours and listened to me talk. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to connecting with you all, maybe online or on Facebook or whatever. So thanks a lot.
And I wanted to just add to that, I've been to the Real Change events in Leeds, a couple of them, and I was impressed by it, so maybe I'll bump into you there. Thank you for everything you do. I can't even state how important it is, the information that you're getting out there, because I know over the years it won't have been easy. You'll have faced ridicule, you'll have faced pushback and all kinds of things, because they don't want that information out there. And I hope you get a new YouTube channel started, but we will have a talk off air about somewhere maybe to store your future videos, so they're not at risk. But thank you ever so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, nice one, John. Thank you so much. Okay, well, bye for now.
Take care. Goodbye, folks.
Humanity has been on an epic journey of discovery, learning the truth about the world we live in. New discoveries about the true origins of humanity, ancient history, free energy, as well as the systematic corruption of world governments are now on the forefront of our daily reality. Is the world headed towards destruction based on control and power? Or is an opportunity now being presented to shift and uplift into a higher consciousness? My name is Mel V, co-founder and creative director of Conscious Consumer Network, an independent broadcast network that was launched on the 1st of January 2015. In the last 3 years, Conscious Consumer Network has broadcast over 2,800 shows in multiple languages, featuring guests from across the world, whilst creating media that is aimed at the creation of a free, fair, peaceful, just, sustainable world. Conscious Consumer Network provides full training and an interactive support network for all broadcasters, and we are always looking for inspiring and educational content.
Hi, this is Lainey Liberty.
And this is Miro Siegel.
In 2018, Conscious Consumer Network has expanded to multiple broadcast locations, increasing our availability and reach across the world, remaining on the cutting edge of independent media. If we wish to create a better world, we must first create better media, geared towards real education instead of indoctrination.
You guys really are what changing the world is going to be about. It's educating kids at a grassroots level.
Having become a pillar of stability in the turbulent world of independent media, we have even more going on in 2018. Conscious Consumer Network is a publicly funded network, and we rely on all of you to keep us on the air. Show your support for independent media by donating to our 2018 Network Support Fund. Dare to seek a better world. Support independent media.